What if I told you there's a portrait hidden inside a painting that you literally cannot see with your own eyes? A self-portrait so microscopic, so cleverly concealed, that it remained invisible for centuries until modern technology finally revealed its existence. This is the story of Caravaggio's genius, rebellion, and the tiny secret he painted into a glass of wine. Picture this: you're standing in front of a masterpiece from 1597, admiring a carafe of red wine glistening on a table. It looks ordinary enough, just light reflecting off glass. But hidden within those reflections is something extraordinary. A self-portrait of the artist himself, complete with easel and brush, measuring barely 6 millimeters across. Smaller than your fingernail. Invisible to the naked eye. And it's been hiding there for over 400 years. This discovery wasn't made by accident, and it certainly wasn't easy to find. The journey to uncovering this secret begins in 1922, when an Italian art restorer first suspected something unusual lurking in the reflections. But it would take nearly a century, and some of the most advanced imaging technology available, before we could finally see what Caravaggio had hidden in plain sight. But before we dive into the mystery of this hidden portrait, we need to understand the man behind it. Because Caravaggio wasn't just any painter. He was a revolutionary who changed art forever, and a man whose life was as dramatic and turbulent as the paintings he created. First things first, Caravaggio wasn't actually named Caravaggio. His real name was Michelangelo Merisi. The name we know him by today comes from the small Italian town in Lombardy where he was born in 1571. And unlike the divine genius we celebrate today, young Michelangelo didn't seem destined for greatness. As a teenager, he drifted through various workshops in Milan, learning from masters who history has largely forgotten. Even then, he showed signs of the rebellious spirit that would define his career. He wasn't interested in following rules or painting things the way they were supposed to be painted. He wanted to capture reality exactly as he saw it, imperfections and all. This attitude would make him a legend, but it would also make his life incredibly difficult. Around 1592, Caravaggio arrived in Rome with practically nothing. No money, no connections, no reputation except for being trouble. All he had was his extraordinary talent and his stubborn refusal to compromise his vision. For a while, he scraped by painting still lifes and taking small commissions, barely surviving in one of the world's most competitive artistic centers. But talent like his couldn't stay hidden forever. Eventually, his work caught the attention of Cardinal Francesco Maria del Monte, one of Rome's most influential patrons of the arts. This was the break Caravaggio needed. Del Monte didn't just buy his paintings, he took the young artist into his palace, gave him a place to live and work, and introduced him to Rome's cultural elite. It was under Cardinal del Monte's protection that Caravaggio painted one of his early masterpieces, the work we now call Bacchus, or Young Bacchus. This painting was destined for the powerful Medici family in Florence, where it still hangs today in the Uffizi Gallery. And it's in this painting that Caravaggio hid his microscopic secret. Let's look at what we actually see in this remarkable work. The painting shows a young man seated before us, extending a glass of wine as if inviting us to drink with him. His skin is pale, his cheeks slightly flushed, giving him the appearance of someone who's already had a bit too much to drink. On his head sits a crown woven from vine leaves and grape clusters, identifying him as Bacchus, the Roman god of wine and revelry. In front of him, a basket overflows with fruit painted in stunning detail. Every grape, every leaf, every subtle imperfection is rendered with such care that they look almost touchable. You can see the shine on the skin of the fruit, the slight browning where some pieces have begun to decay. This attention to realistic detail was becoming Caravaggio's signature. But here's where things get interesting. Look closely at Bacchus himself. His fingernails aren't pristine, they have a slightly dirty appearance, as if they belong to an ordinary street kid from Rome rather than an immortal god. His flushed cheeks don't have the smooth perfection of marble statues, they look like someone who's been drinking cheap wine in a tavern. And his expression? There's nothing divine about it. His gaze is mischievous, worldly, almost flirtatious, like a drinking companion issuing a challenge. This was revolutionary for its time. In the late 1500s, artists typically painted gods and mythological figures as idealized, perfect beings, untouchable, flawless, divine. But Caravaggio completely rejected this approach. He took the god of wine and turned him into a regular young man, probably a model he found on the streets of Rome, and painted him with such raw naturalism that it bordered on provocative. This was Caravaggio's genius, making the sacred ordinary and the ordinary sacred. Now, let's direct our attention to the most intriguing element of this entire composition. In the lower left corner, just in front of young Bacchus, sits a glass carafe filled with red wine. At first glance, it seems utterly unremarkable, just a transparent vessel catching and reflecting light. The reflections appear blurred and indistinct, nothing special to see. But remember who painted this. Caravaggio was a master of hiding secrets in his work, and this carafe holds perhaps his most ingenious concealment. In 1922, art historian Matteo Marangoni was examining the painting after it had undergone cleaning. As he studied the wine carafe, something caught his eye. Within the reflections, he thought he could make out what he described as a tiny little head, a face that reminded him of Caravaggio himself. But at that time, with the technology available, he couldn't prove it. It remained nothing more than an intriguing theory, a footnote in art history. Decades passed. The painting darkened with age, and various restoration attempts added layers of varnish that further obscured whatever might be hidden in that glass. The supposed self-portrait, if it existed at all, became even more invisible. Then came 2009, and everything changed. A team of expert restorers from the Opificio del Pitre Due in Florence subjected the painting to multispectral infrared reflectography. This cutting-edge technique allows researchers to see through layers of paint and varnish that are completely opaque to the human eye, revealing what lies beneath. The results were astonishing. The technology confirmed what Marangoni had suspected nearly a century earlier. Hidden in the reflections of the wine carafe was indeed a self-portrait of Caravaggio. The images revealed a young man with dark, curly hair, wearing a white-collared shirt, standing before an easel with a brush in his hand. The artist at work, painting the very scene we're looking at. To truly appreciate the technical mastery involved here, consider this: the entire self-portrait measures approximately 6 to 7 millimeters. That's smaller than a pinky fingernail. Even if you stand directly in front of the painting in the Uffizi Gallery, even if you know exactly where to look, you still cannot see it with your naked eye. Caravaggio painted this minute detail with the finest brushstrokes imaginable, designed to blend seamlessly with the natural reflections in the glass. Why can't we see it now, even knowing it's there? Time and conservation have conspired against visibility. As the painting aged, the varnishes applied to protect it gradually darkened, casting a yellowish tint over the lighter areas. Earlier restoration efforts, well-intentioned but lacking modern precision, added additional layers that further buried the reflection. The tiny face ended up concealed beneath multiple translucent veils, making it essentially invisible without technological assistance. But here's the fascinating part: this wasn't the only time Caravaggio inserted himself into his own work. In fact, hiding self-portraits in his paintings was something of a signature move for him, especially in his early career. Take the painting called Young Sick Bacchus, created around 1593. The model portraying the god isn't just any young man, it's Caravaggio himself. He painted his own face with a sickly appearance, yellowish skin, dry lips, tired eyes. Art historians believe he created this while recovering from a serious illness, essentially documenting his own suffering as divine mythology. Then there's Medusa, that famous severed head with its expression of frozen horror and bulging eyes. Many experts agree that the face is Caravaggio's own. He used his reflection in a convex mirror to capture that moment of shock and terror, immortalizing his own features in the monster's death. In The Taking of Christ, painted in 1602, Caravaggio gave himself a more subtle role. He didn't paint himself as Christ or Judas or any of the main figures. Instead, he placed himself in the corner of the scene as the man holding a lantern, illuminating the betrayal. It's as if he's positioning himself as an eyewitness to history, ensuring that his artistic tool, light, reaches the heart of the drama. Perhaps the most powerful self-portrait appears in one of his final works, David with the Head of Goliath. Here, young David holds the severed head of the giant he's just slain, and that head is unmistakably Caravaggio himself. The face of Goliath, with its parted lips and vacant stare, shows the artist in his maturity, older and marked by life. Many scholars interpret this as an act of confession, Caravaggio symbolically offering himself as the victim, acknowledging his life of violence, excess, and regret. A pattern emerges from all these examples. People often say Caravaggio never signed his paintings, but that's not quite true. He signed them with something far more personal than a name. He signed them with his own face. And that's exactly what he did with young Bacchus, hiding himself in the tiniest reflection of a wine carafe. It's a signature so subtle that it took hundreds of years and advanced technology to confirm its existence. Now, you might be wondering whether this is all really true. After all, in the images that have been released to the public, it's nearly impossible to clearly see where this self-portrait supposedly exists. And here's something interesting. The detailed X-ray study conducted in 2009 was never actually published in full. While reliable sources, including the Uffizi Gallery itself, confirmed the study was performed, the high-resolution images were never released to the media. What we have are descriptions and lower-quality photographs where nothing can be clearly distinguished. So does that mean it's not real? Not necessarily. Given everything we know about Caravaggio's pattern of self-insertion, his technical brilliance, and his love of subtle symbolism, it's entirely plausible that he would paint himself into this work in such an ingeniously concealed way. The question isn't really whether he could have done it. We know he had the skill. The question is whether we can trust the technology and the experts who examined the painting. What makes this discovery so compelling isn't just the technical achievement of painting something so microscopically small. It's what it tells us about Caravaggio as an artist and as a person. He was someone who needed to leave his mark, to be present in his own work, even if no one would ever see it. There's something deeply human about that impulse, the desire to say, I was here, I made this, I exist. In hiding his self-portrait in a reflection, Caravaggio also created a beautiful metaphor. He shows us the artist literally reflected in his own work, caught in the act of creation. It's a reminder that every painting contains not just the subject, but also the presence of the person who made it. The artist is always there, in every brushstroke, every choice of color, every play of light and shadow. This is why Caravaggio continues to fascinate us more than 4 centuries after his death. He wasn't content to simply paint beautiful things. He needed to challenge conventions, push boundaries, and hide secrets for future generations to discover. He transformed art from something purely decorative into something viscerally real and deeply personal. The hidden self-portrait in young Bacchus is more than just a technical curiosity. It's a testament to Caravaggio's genius, his rebellious spirit, and his determination to be present in his art, even in ways that might never be seen. It reminds us that great art always contains more than meets the eye, waiting patiently for the right moment and the right technology to reveal its secrets. And who knows? Perhaps there are other secrets still hiding in Caravaggio's paintings, waiting to be discovered. After all, if he could paint a portrait smaller than a fingernail and hide it in a glass of wine, what else might he have concealed in those dark shadows and brilliant highlights that define his revolutionary style?